What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be discussing my preview / prediction for the Detroit Lions and Chicago Bears game that takes place this Sunday. So let's get it started.
I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, guys don't know, DoseOfDion, he put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here, and I literally cannot believe we're already making this video. I mean, guys, think about this. We are making a video previewing week 1. In 3 days, the Detroit Lions take on the Chicago Bears. In a few hours, the NFL kicks off as of when I'm recording this. Are you serious? Yes, we're that close to the NFL season for really everybody and for the Detroit Lions. Just a few days away until the Lions get this thing started. I am super, super excited. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of a preview. I'm going to give you guys my prediction for week 1. Now, this is a prediction that I'm trying to be accurate with, okay? Not necessarily something that I'm just like, hey, we could beat them by 40. I'm trying to be super accurate with this one, just see how close I can get. I'm probably going to be wrong, I'm probably not going to be exactly right with this, but I'm just going to do my little prediction here and things like that. Now, this isn't going to be one of those videos where I just go through the players and compare them like, oh, Robert Quinn is there and we have Big V. That's not what this is going to be. It's going to be more on the field, less of the players. I'm not just going quarterback versus quarterback. It's not like that, okay? It's more on the field. Now, it's not my game plan video, but I would say it's closer to that than, just comparing players, all right? So let's just hop right into this thing, man. We're going to be looking at some stats, but not just your basic stats. We're not going to just be looking at how the Bears offense only scored this many points per game. It's going to be a little bit more specific to certain players, things like that. Let's start off with the Bears offense. So we're going to be discussing how the Bears can score offensively, how the Bears can beat us, and how the Detroit Lions can slow down this Bears offense. You're probably thinking to yourself, hold up, did you just say slow down that Bears offense? Yeah, I know I did. Okay, look, the Bears offense wasn't that good last season. I get it, and it may not be that good this season either. But we have to take our opponent seriously because they will put up points. I mean, I don't think they're going to put up 30-plus points, but they will put up points. They're probably not going to get shut out. I would love to see that, but they're probably not going to. And they put up points, I think, versus every team last year. So we definitely have to focus on this offense still and talk about how the Lions can stop them and how the Bears can go out there and beat us by putting up some points, all right? So we're kind of talking about both sides here. This isn't just for the Detroit Lions. It's also for the Bears. Now, heading into the 2020 season, we can expect a little bit of a different offensive scheme for the Chicago Bears, and that means 12 personnel. 12 personnel for the Chicago Bears is probably going to be what we're going to see a ton of the time. The Bears this offseason made a ton of additions to make that work for their scheme. Getting guys like Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham. 12 personnel, by the way, is 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, and 1 running back. I thought I would just throw that out there. So that's what we can expect probably a lot more this season. They made the additions to make that work on paper, and that's probably what we're going to see a ton of. It's what Philadelphia did when they won the Super Bowl. Matt Nagy's familiar with it. Matt Nagy loves to go to his tight ends. That's why his first pick in this year's draft was a tight end. So that's what we're going to talk about. That's why they currently have 5 tight ends on the roster. At one point, they had 10. They currently have 5 on their roster. So they're going to have a little bit of a different look offensively, which means there's going to be different threats than years past for the Detroit Lions. I mean, sure, you have the usual suspects. You're still going to have your Allen Robinsons, your Tariq Cohens, your Anthony Millers, and now Ted Ginn. But it's going to look a little bit different because they are in that 12 personnel set. Now, we know tight ends, they could be a little bit slow out the gate, okay? Usually they don't come out and set the world on fire. We saw that with T.J. Hockenson last season. That's probably what we're going to see a little bit with Cole Kmet. I don't know, but I'm just assuming that's what we're going to see. Jimmy Graham is a nice veteran, but he's a little bit older, and he's not Jimmy Graham that used to be Jimmy Graham. First off, starting with the Bears offense, they're going to look to attack the tight end position, of course. I mean, there's a reason they invested so much at that tight end position because that's where they're going to want to attack this next season. Now, for the Detroit Lions side of things, how in the world do you stop tight ends? I remember for years, this was a huge problem with the Detroit Lions. It's like, man, we cannot cover tight ends at all. Good thing is, it's not the same problem that it used to be. I mean, it's still a little bit of a problem, but to be honest with you, pretty much every team is going to struggle with tight ends if they do well offensively because tight ends are just a matchup nightmare. If you have an athletic tight end, okay, that's consistently catching the football, you're going to have problems for a defense because tight ends just don't match up well with anybody defensively. For linebackers, your linebackers are usually too slow. For corners and safeties, they're usually too small. So you're usually going to have some mismatches there with tight ends no matter what you do. But the Lions haven't been terrible against tight ends. I mean, if you look at Matt Patricia last season in their first 7 games, they weren't too bad against them, and they went through a complete gauntlet when they faced the Raiders and they went against Waller. He only had 2 receptions that game. Now, sure, they were for, a pretty good amount of yards, but that's all he had in the game. The Lions have been good, not great against tight ends under Matt Patricia. So that's definitely some reason for optimism heading into this week 1 game against Chicago, a team that's going to look to attack the tight end position. I mean, keep in mind, Matt Nagy was there when Travis Kelce, started to get better, and he was becoming Travis Kelce he is today, and he was with Brent Selleck, if you guys remember, with the Philadelphia Eagles. So he's familiar with all of these tight ends, and that's where they're really going to look to attack offensively. That's one of the ways they're going to try to attack the Lions defense. How do the Lions go against this? Okay, how do you stop tight ends? You just told me I can't cover them, so how do I stop them? Well, there's different ways to go about it, and for the most part, we're going to be going about it a lot of different ways. I thought it was super interesting. I just wanted to point this out because I felt like it just fit right on cue, and it was in the last 24 hours as well. Apparently, Bill Belichick called up Aqib Talib, and he offered him $6 million just to cover tight ends, okay? We know the veteran cornerback Aqib Talib, who was with New England at one point, Bill Belichick was like, hey, you want to come here, sign this $6 million deal just so you can help us cover some tight ends. And he ended up looking at their schedule, saw the tight ends they were going to have to face. He was like, heck no, I will do what I'm doing. I'm not coming back to do that. So Aqib Talib didn't go back to the New England Patriots. But just that alone kind of shows you how Bill Belichick was possibly looking to slow down tight ends heading into the season. And that's kind of similar in how the Lions are going to look to do it as well. Sure, you're going to have cornerbacks lined up on tight ends sometimes, depending on just your personnel or packages that are on the field. But those safeties and linebackers are what are the most important. And first off, we're going to focus on the safety position for the Detroit Lions. Aqib Talib is 6'1", 205 pounds. Will Harris is 6'1", 207 pounds. So I guess that tells you how similar in size they are. We know Will Harris has been getting first-team reps, who is one of the Lions safeties. He's going to have a lot of chances against some Bears tight ends because there's going to be 2 tight ends on the field a ton. So you have to have safeties that can cover this. And you're going to expect to see a lot of 3 safety sets from the Detroit Lions because that's just what they do. They play a lot of nickel and dime. That's what they do. That's what we're going to see on the field. And when there's 2 tight ends out there, you can expect that those safeties are going to have to take on a big role. Now, Tracy Walker missed some time last year due to injuries, but he's going to be here in week 1. And Tracy Walker, Will Harris, those 2 guys are going to be huge. There is no Jaron Curse, so Tracy Walker and Will Harris need to step up to the challenge and help take away those tight ends. Now, when it comes to linebackers, last year, I would say this isn't good because we got Jared Davis, we had a rookie, Jelani Tavai. Jelani Tavai proved to us that he could cover much better than I thought he could, and that was big, and now he's heading year 2. There's definitely more confidence around him, but now you have Jamie Collins, and Jamie Collins alone makes me much more confident in our ability to stop tight ends. Jamie Collins was the best coverage linebacker, and it wasn't even close. He allowed just over a 50 passer rating. The second closest was somewhere in the 70s. So I think that just kind of sums up how good this guy is in coverage. So Jamie Collins is going to play a huge role, and so are these safeties. I mean, those guys are pretty much the X factors defensively because if you can't stop tight ends in a 12 personnel set, you're going to be in for a long day. I'll give the advantage to the Lions when it comes to covering tight ends, but they're going to get a couple receptions. I mean, it's just going to happen. But those guys are the players that you should definitely focus on. And historically with Patricia, at least I have some optimism heading into this one that he knows what he's doing when it comes to slowing down tight ends. Now, moving back to the quarterback position for the Chicago Bears, it's all about Mitch Trubisky. He has been named the starter for week 1 against the Detroit Lions, not Nick Foles. So we got to discuss some Mitch Trubisky. How do you slow down this beast in Mitchell Trubisky? Well, I'm going to tell you how. You keep him in the pocket. And I know it sounds crazy because you're probably thinking to yourself, why in the world would I want to keep a quarterback in the pocket? That doesn't make any sense. But in Mitchell Trubisky's case, it kind of does. The reason being is because Trubisky isn't very good in the pocket. Trubisky's one of the worst quarterbacks in the pocket. He had a lower pass rating when he was in the pocket last season than Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones. I can go on and on, okay? Wasn't very good in the pocket. Now, when he was outside the pocket, he still wasn't the best quarterback, but he was much better compared to other quarterbacks across the league. Take this, for example. Mitchell Trubisky was way better in terms of pass rating than Matthew Stafford outside the pocket last year. However, Matthew Stafford was actually the best quarterback into the pocket last season of any quarterback in the NFL. I just want to kind of throw in that little praise for Matthew Stafford. So you want to keep a guy like Trubisky in the pocket. How do you keep a guy like Trubisky in the pocket? What, you don't blitz anymore? Actually, no, we've talked about this, okay? You can blitz Mitchell Trubisky. I don't think you need to do it all the time. Matt Patricia won't do it all the time. That's just not how he does things. But I think we may see it a little bit more in this game. However, there is a big risk when it comes to blitzing a guy that you don't want to get outside the pocket. Is that usually when that blitz comes, they're trying to get outside the pocket. And that's where Trubisky feels comfortable. I'm not saying that they can't blitz in this game. It's definitely going to be fine to blitz. But the one thing the Lions have to make sure they do is that when they do blitz Mitchell Trubisky, they're also bringing pressure off of the edge because that's where he's going to look to go. If you bring pressure off the edge, you're forcing him to step up into the pocket, which is kind of where you want him to be, honestly, as a defense. They have him in the pocket and then outside the pocket, a guy that's mobile, a guy that can run, and he seems to be just more comfortable out there. So the Lions can blitz, and if you watch the Lions last season against Mitchell Trubisky and how Matt Patricia handled things, he did a very good job, in my opinion, of disguising surprising things. And when it came to the fourth quarter with Jeff Driscoll, this is the first time we played him, Matt Patricia started dialing up the heat. And there was multiple times where he got sacks on Mitchell Trubisky bringing that heat, because early in the game, he was showing not bringing. Later in the game, he was bringing it, and all of a sudden, they were getting home on Mitchell Trubisky. That's what you have to do. You have to continue to disguise looks, show different things at Mitchell Trubisky. And for the Chicago Bears, where they can attack out of this, if he is forced to step up back into the pocket, is over the middle. That's where they've also had a lot of success against the Detroit Lions, is attacking over the middle. That brings you all the way back to your tight ends. This is where 12 personnel, 2 tight ends on the field. You have tight ends attacking over the middle, and you also have a lot of speedsters, a lot of little receivers out there that are pretty darn fast that the Lions can struggle with in man-to-man coverage on crossing routes. So those are 2 important things. But we've talked about this before. How do you stop crossing routes, and who takes away passes over the middle? Obviously, you need to be better, good in man-to-man. But those linebackers have to be able to do their job over the middle in coverage, and that comes back to Jelani Tavai and Jimmy Collins, potentially Jared Davis as he's back there again. But those 2 guys are major upgrades, and they're going to be super, super important in this game against Chicago Bears. That's kind of how I'm looking things for the offense of the Bears. They have a couple nice little weapons. Allen Robinson is a very good receiver. They have Tariq Cohen out of the backfield, who will make plays against the Lions, and we don't know about David Montgomery's status, but I know he runs really well when he plays against Detroit. Anthony Miller absolutely dominated Justin Coleman. I believe it was the second time they played the Lions last season, so he needs to be much better. Overall, it's going to be really a chess match here to see what Matt Patricia does when it comes to bringing pressure. I have no problem with it. I think just contain the quarterback. Contain. And then obviously in the back end, it's going to be huge on those safeties and linebackers to step up to the challenge, even covering running backs out of the backfield. We saw last year safeties following running backs. Those guys have to be able to take those things away, take away those other weapons, and obviously you put a lot of investments into that cornerback group, so that should be much improved on its own. You move to the other side of the ball. When you move to the Detroit Lions offensively, what is the Lions' biggest challenge heading into this one? Well, it's going to be that pressure. See, the Bears, they know how to get to the quarterback, and a big reason for that is they spent a lot of money and a lot of draft capital there, and they continue to do that this offseason, bringing in Robert Quinn basically to replace a guy like Leonard Floyd. They're going to get to the quarterback. He spent $70 million to bring Robert Quinn. You already brought in Khalil Mack. They're going to get to the quarterback. Sakeem Hicks is healthy. They're kind of scary when it comes to getting back in the backfield. Last season, they blitzed 23.5% of the time, which is only 25th in the league. I mean, that's not a lot, yet they were 4th in hurry percentage. 4th in the league in hurry percentage. They're going to get to the quarterback. They're going to be more healthy. There could be problems there. How did the Detroit Lions go against this? How did the Detroit Lions counter this? Because if the Bears can get home against a guy like Matthew Stafford that's not the most mobile, we're going to have problems. So how do the Lions go against this? I think we saw in the David Blau game. The second time the Lions played the Bears, I think we saw it. Play actions. Take shots. If you take shots with Matthew Stafford out of play action, it's going to really, really be difficult for those pass rushers. And that's where Detroit Lions need to sell everything. There was tons of play actions when David Blau was in there. And I felt like the offense looked a little bit different when Jeff Driscoll was there. It seemed like they changed things up, really tried to tailor to him a lot of rollouts. We're not going to see as much as that with Matthew Stafford. But when David Blau was in there, I think that's similar to what we may see with Matthew Stafford. A lot of play actions, a lot of shots for the Detroit Lions, and they had success with it because Matthew Stafford, he's still in the pocket, of course, historically a really good quarterback in play action, and when you're able to do that, you're able to mix that with the run game, and this is why the run game needs to be effective, and if it is, oh my gosh, I don't know what you're going to do, but this is why that's super important. Now, who are your targets? Well, one of your biggest targets is going to be TJ Hockenson, potentially Jesse James or Isaac Nauta, who's ever out there, but I would say keep an eye on the tight ends for the Lions offensively. I didn't really think about this coming in, however, I'm really starting to lean to the fact that TJ Hockenson may not have as big as a game as he did against Arizona, but he could have a major game in week 1. Why? Look at the Lions versus the Bears historically. Tight ends do well, okay? They do well against the Bears. For whatever reason, they do well against the Chicago Bears. And if you look at what the Bears defense looks like, a lot of pass rushers, not necessarily all these coverage linebackers, the Lions can attack that tight end position, especially out of play action. They can attack it over and over and over. And we saw that with TJ Hockenson against Arizona. And again, coming back to that matchup problem, just like for the Bears, for the Lions, their matchup problem, their matchup nightmare should be TJ Hockenson. Of course, you have the one-on-one weapons. And if you watch the Saints against the Bears, they use Michael Thomas over and over and over and over because Michael Thomas is Michael Thomas. Galladay, Jones, they're going to get open, they're going to make plays. But keep an eye on TJ Hockenson for being that guy offensively because they're going to have a huge role. Tight ends are going to have to help block, but I think a lot of the blocking is going to come from the backfield. Yes, I think you're going to see guys like Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson, DeAndre Swift. Those guys are really going to help blocking. They have to really help blocking because there's going to be times where alpha play action, they go out for a little bit of a dump off. We're going to get some routes out there like McKissick did, like Ty did. but their guys are also going to have to be able to block, because if we come out in a shotgun, if we come out in play action, you're not going off route, you have to be able to hold up enough to let the weapons get downfield, because I saw way less of tight ends blocking against the Bears and more of running backs blocking against the Bears. And if our running backs like AP, Carryon, who are known to be able to block pretty well, can hold up, can give Matthew Stafford an extra second to see down the field, it's going to give him an opportunity to attack with the tight ends, with the weapons that we have. Now, the secondary for the Bears, they have some very talented players. They have Eddie Jackson, they have Kyle Fuller, and then they have some, I would say, okay/unproven players. You have Jalen Johnson you drafted, you have Deshaun Gibson, who I believe is going to be starting. So you have a little bit of questionable players in the secondary, but you also have two really good playmakers. And we saw, last year Kyle Fuller had an interception and all that. So they're going to make plays. And historically, the Bears have found a way to get interceptions. Whoever is the quarterback is usually throwing interceptions against Chicago. The way the Lions attacked this Bears defense, if you watch the second time they played Chicago, it was taking shots. They weren't holding back. I felt like they held back the first time they played the Bears, trying to make sure the pressure didn't get there. That's not how you beat them. You go right at them. You continue to let the ball fly. And if Matthew Stafford is out there letting the ball fly against the Chicago Bears, we're going to have success. He needs to be out there putting the ball down the field, okay, allowing the playmakers to make plays. You can't match up both Marvin and Kenny. It just won't work. You got to allow these guys to get down the field and make some big plays. And they just need to hold up a little bit longer. So it's going to be really important for the running backs to block. And for the Bears side of things, they really want to get to the quarterback, because then you can see some of those couple playmakers in the back end hopefully jump some routes for their side and make some big plays against this Lions offense. Statistically, the Lions have really struggled against Chicago Bears when it comes to passing. I mean, last season, Jeff Driscoll and David Blau both only completed 58% of their passes. They've had 3 touchdowns combined and 2 interceptions. For both quarterbacks passed for less than 300 yards. Usually, quarterbacks just don't have huge games against Chicago Bears because they have a good defense. If this running game can get going, because what happened when David Blau was in there is Bo Scarborough ate. Bo Scarborough took advantage. We almost set up the run with the play action. It was almost a little bit backwards, but Bo Scarborough was able to make some big plays. Now with Bo Scarborough on IR, you would get the potential to see Carryon, who's healthy, who wasn't healthy against the Bears last season in that game. Now you get to see Adrian Peterson, those bigger running backs that are going to be able to make some plays. Then Swift is going to be like your McKissick and Ty on the backfield, who made some plays in the receiving game. So for me, I think this is going to be a competitive game. I really do. I know Chicago, we're a better team than Chicago, but I think week 1, there's a lot of things that are here. You don't really know what to expect, and it's going to be a lot of adjusting on the fly. So, one team could come out slow, and all of a sudden, the second half, they take the game over. I think we could see some weird stuff and weird ones. You just really don't know what you're going to, you have no idea. Even from veterans, you just don't know what's going to happen. But I will say, I believe the Lions have the better team on paper. For the Lions, I think the Lions will win this game. I have the Lions winning this one 23-17. I know it's not a crazy big score for the Lions offense. I just don't see them putting up a crazy amount of points. Fortunately, we didn't get to see Stafford play against them. But if you look, I think that the last 4 years the Lions have played the Bears, they've averaged 21.5 points per game. I think they score 23 in this one, and I'll give the Bears 17 points, which is really good because honestly, a win's a win, and 6 points is pretty darn nice. I mean, that's more than what the spread is. And hey, 17 points, all the team 17 points will be much better and much improved from last season. So that is my prediction. I got the Lions in this one 23-17 over the Chicago Bears. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Where do the Lions need to attack, and what can Chicago do to get this win? Thank you, Bob, for watching, and I'm out. Look at all these cool people. Look at all these cool Hall of Fame, All-Pro, and patrons. You guys are so awesome. Look how interesting. That's an interesting name. I've never seen one like that. I'm not saying that one out loud. We got some cool stuff here, man. I appreciate all of you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys want to be part of this? Click the join button. I appreciate you guys. Look, man, you guys are cool, man. I see you. Oh, I see you're not sneak. I see you down there, my boy.